Ryan, welcome to the podcast. I am beyond excited about today's topic, from zero to millions. We're diving into the habits and strategies of successful startup founders. I know you've been in this world for years, so tell me, what's the first thing that separates a successful founder from someone who doesn't quite make it?
Thanks, Emma. Happy to be here. That's a great question. If I had to pinpoint one thing, it's clarity of vision. Successful founders aren't just chasing money or trends. They have a crystal clear vision of what they want to achieve and, more importantly, why it matters. That why becomes their anchor when things get tough. And trust me, things will get tough.
Vision, got it. But let's be honest, most people think they have a clear vision. What's the difference between someone with a vague dream and a founder with a truly actionable vision?
The difference lies in how they translate that vision into goals. A dream is just a wish if you're not breaking it down into specific, measurable objectives. Great founders set clear milestones. For example, instead of saying, "I want to revolutionize healthcare," they'll say, "In the next 6 months, I'll onboard 10 beta testers for my health tech app." It's that level of specificity that sets them apart.
That's such an important point. So let's dig into habits now. What daily habits do these founders have that keep them on track?
Oh, there are so many. But let me give you my top 3. First, ruthless prioritization. Successful founders start each day by asking themselves, what is the one thing I can do today that will make everything else easier or unnecessary? This laser focus ensures they dedicate their energy to high-impact tasks, avoiding distractions and low-value activities. Next, a learning obsession. They have an insatiable hunger for knowledge, constantly reading books, listening to podcasts, attending conferences, and staying ahead of trends. For them, stagnation is not an option. It's the death of progress. Finally, networking with intent. They don't treat networking as a numbers game or collect LinkedIn connections for appearances. Instead, they cultivate genuine relationships with people who can offer mentorship, share valuable advice, or open doors to collaborative opportunities.
I love that. Let's talk about mindset. You mentioned earlier that things get tough. How do successful founders push through when it feels like everything is falling apart?
Resilience, Emma. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but for founders, it's everything. The ones who succeed have an almost irrational ability to keep going when most people would quit. But here's the kicker. They're not blindly persistent. They know when to pivot. They'll stick to their end goal, but they're flexible about the path to get there.
Can you give us an example of that? Maybe a real world story of a founder who pivoted and turned things around?
Absolutely. Let's talk about Brian Chesky, one of the co-founders of Airbnb. In the early days, Airbnb was struggling big time. No one was booking. They were on the brink of giving up. But instead of folding, they asked themselves, what are we missing? They realized their photos weren't showcasing the spaces well. So they flew to New York, rented a professional camera, and took high-quality pictures of the listings themselves. That small pivot, focusing on better marketing, helped them start gaining traction, and the rest is history.
That's such a great example. Now, let's shift gears a bit. What are some habits or mindsets that don't work? Things founders should absolutely avoid.
Oh, I could write a book on this. The biggest mistake is trying to do everything yourself. Founders who refuse to delegate end up burned out and bottlenecking their own growth. Another one is chasing trends without understanding the market. Just because something's hot doesn't mean it aligns with your skills, vision, or customer needs. And lastly, ignoring feedback. If you're too attached to your idea to listen to what the market is telling you, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Speaking of feedback, how should founders approach it? I imagine it's not easy to hear, your idea isn't perfect.
You're right, it's not easy. But successful founders treat feedback as data, not criticism. They don't take it personally. Instead, they ask questions like, what specifically isn't working for you? Or, what would make this better? The goal is to extract actionable insights and improve.
Let's touch on funding. Everyone wants to know. How do these founders go from an idea to securing millions in funding?
Funding. It's both an art and a science. The best founders are great storytellers. They can articulate their vision in a way that excites investors. But they also back it up with numbers. Investors don't just want to hear about your idea. They want to see your market research, your traction, your business model. And here's a pro tip. Don't wait until you need money to start building relationships with investors. Start networking early.
That's gold, Ryan. Before we wrap up, what's one final piece of advice you'd give to aspiring founders listening to this podcast?
Focus on creating value. At the end of the day, the most successful startups solve real problems for real people. If you keep that at the core of everything you do, the money, the growth, the success, it'll all follow.
Amazing advice, Ryan. This has been such a valuable conversation. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, but you've given our listeners so much to think about.
Thanks, Emma. It's been a pleasure. I hope this inspires someone out there to take the leap and start building their dream.
I'm sure it will. And to all our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to Success Blueprints for more insights like this. Until next time.